Archie's Double Digest 19, Dimension 13. Sabrina's about to mail a letter when a stupid kid runs in front of a car from chasing a ball, which would only happen if he started chasing the ball when the car wasn't in his line of sight yet. And somehow she decides to conspicuously make the kid float instead of making the car itself stop, which people could have explained away as being a car problem. Someone witnesses it, and somehow she's worried about someone blabbing about it instead of erasing his memory of it, even though she could do that. He says there's already been a rumor that she's a witch, even though no one would believe that because no one believes in witches. The plot won't progress. He should have been holding a camera. Wouldn't he just think she's a saint because she saved a kid's life with powers? It's a really engaging start. Why does Sabrina smile when telling him to forget it? Why doesn't she try to lie to him that he hallucinated what he saw? She did that plenty of times. He says she could be dangerous even though he just saw her save someone, which a stereotypical witch wouldn't do. He'd at least take a little while first before thinking this. She thinks telling him her age would reassure him when she still has telekinesis. To be fair, it's a little more likely than expecting him to trust her because she said she's nice, because she already proved she was nice, and that wasn't enough. Somehow he thinks it's a good idea to warn a dangerous witch he's gonna tell the others about her. Why does he tell her where he's going? He's so open with information, but it's not because he's afraid of her, or he'd have played nice. Somehow he thinks she'd be bad luck for the football game, even though she was good luck for a kid, and thinks it's a good idea to tease her. But Sabrina stays in character because while she's realistically tempted, she doesn't use magic on him. She notices a button on the kid's head, and it turns out he's just a poorly made robot who must have been intentionally made able to fall apart so easily so that she'd be taunted by this. She decides to use her ESP to figure out who did this to her. Somehow she doesn't find out in the very next panel. What kind of lame-ass ESP requires you to use it before you can find out information or see the future? So it's weird to call it ESP. This is constant bad writing, but at least it's not usually the kind of bad writing that the sitcom has. Shockingly, Professor Pither was used in this story. I thought he was only in that one issue of the original Sabrina comic, and that one little Archie story I never read. As usual, it's annoying to read his lisp. Sabrina won't be a threat to him when she's too busy trying to prove her innocence. Why didn't he assume she would have instantly used magic to make that guy forget what he saw? Why didn't he assume he'd assume he hallucinated it? Both of which tends to happen every time. Why didn't he think she'd be too dangerous to provoke? Like, she could have used her ESP to find out that he was responsible for this and then warped him to her. To be fair, he is crazy. But that's a get-out-of-jail-free card to justify his writing. At least it's amusing to see him run around with a fake tree around him in broad daylight. He says Mad Dr. Doom loaned him his lab after Archie scared him out of town. He would have been more impressive if it was his lab. He takes a while to explain that he's going to steal a diamond with his time machine while talking to himself because he's insane. We didn't need to see a scene dedicated to him. I'm glad Blabby gets told to cool it. But somehow one of the other players still believes that she's a witch and that witches bring bad luck. Why would he ever think she'd bring bad luck? If anything, she'd bring bad luck to the other team. Plus, didn't they used to know her? So they would know that she's a good person. Pither eventually makes the team disappear. The coach assumes this means Sabrina did it. But to be fair, if she worked them back here, it'd prove that she's a witch to him for sure, so she can't do that. So instead we have to see her sob. Della talks to her from the mirror and tells her to look outside at her riding a horse, and Della magically uses a reverse tornado to bring her to her side, and she's been spying on Pither. But somehow she didn't deal with him herself instantly, and instead tries to get her to do it. I'm not told why I should care that Sabrina could get promoted to second-class witch. Surprisingly, Sabrina tells her to hang the promotion. To be fair, if she really deserved second-class witch, she'd have been experienced enough to have erased Blobby's memory at least. This is her being the goody-goody she's supposed to be. Why is it called the 13th dimension? What are all the other dimensions? Why would she humor Pither on what name he gave the dimension instead of just saying this other dimension? He must have stolen witch power artifacts to even create another dimension. Della uses her flying horse to bring her all the way into the 13th dimension, where the players beg for Sabrina's help. I guess he apologized insincerely, because that's the only way this makes sense. Somehow these omnipotent witches can't instantly get them out of here. This keeps happening. This is why the writers shouldn't be writing drama with them. There's more blatant padding where Della gives exposition to Sabrina about Pither's motive that we already know. I'm forced to just assume the reason someone tipped off Pither to the diamond was that he assumed Pither would split the money with him. Otherwise, he'd never do it. Why did Della bother taking Sabrina to the 13th dimension? That wasn't where they had to go to prevent the diamond theft. And that's what they had to do to save the players. Della directs her flying horse to the diamond's location, wasting a whole page until they see a sub under the bridge, and there's more insulting padding when we really don't need to see Pither brag. We know he'll lose. Why would Della rent a cloudicorn instead of zap one up? At least it was creative to give the unicorn that name and not just use a Pegasus instead. Sabrina somehow thinks she might be screwed if Della leaves, even though she's omnipotent. She flies down to the sub, and somehow the people on it recognize her, and I have to put up with them panicking. Since when would a bunch of high schoolers be on a submarine anyway? I guess they were paid to be there? Eventually I get to see her magically save them from a torpedo in front of them. Somehow she thinks she can't hold out much longer just because she's only a third-class teen witch. She already destroyed its momentum. It wouldn't get it back because there wouldn't be an outside force to act on it and give it the momentum back. Why would she only use a temporary time freeze spell? Why not just destroy it? She instead used up all of her magic with this. At least her being written to say this justifies the increased stakes. I still think it's insulting that she used up her magic just now because it could have easily not happened. We tend to assume she has a ton of magic, but it's better than the story making me wonder why she won't use magic to progress the plot anymore. Like, a lot makes me wonder for no reason. She swims over to the torpedo and controls its path with her foot to make it head for Pither, and tells him to return the football team. She doesn't kill Pither. To be fair, most people wouldn't have the guts to do the common sense thing here, especially not Sabrina, so it's only a little frustrating. But it's so frustrating because she's responsible for everything he's gonna do that's bad after this. Eventually she trips and falls into the water. Her shoe's caught in a part of the torpedo, so Pither can't turn it. So to keep himself from being blown up, he jumps into the time taxi and disappears. The story could have easily killed him to justify why he'll never be used again. Eventually, after too much padding, Sabrina's told the time taxi couldn't be found and neither could he, and so she won't get promoted. She says her witch senses tell her that Pither's no more. Then she should just warp him to her. She just wants to be a dick to Sabrina. Well, she is supposed to be evil. The story ends with Pither being talked to by cavemen, so he does die, just off screen. Because there's no hint he'll ever get home, and living conditions were bad then. It's still anticlimactic compared to blowing him up. Well, it's certainly gutsy to end the story without people not remembering that she's a witch anymore. Not that gutsy, because I'm sure there's not going to be any continuity after this. This silly story, Of course it was by Bob Bowling, because it involved Professor Pither and was taking things completely seriously and didn't feel like a Sabrina story at all. Was about Sabrina's secret being revealed just to torment us with people unrealistically mistreating her for it. And then Sabrina being told to stop Pither by someone who could stop him instantly with magic herself, and has no reason to care that he's inconveniencing mortals, and was spying on him, so she could have just warped to him. So Sabrina ends up preventing a torpedo from sinking a boat due to a wannabe diamond thief firing it. Why didn't she just warp Pither to her instantly to end the story? It never explains that Pither's got a lab coat on that's made of anti-magic materials. If they only explained that with every supervillain, they could justify having Sabrina become a superhero comic. Just have it so that Sabrina never knows where the supervillain is until it's too late, and is immune to direct magic. Because this was engaging. She would have erased Blabby's memory of her using magic, so none of the pointless plot around her magic being discovered would have happened. Nothing about the story makes sense and belongs in the Sabrina series. It's still better than the sitcom, because at least it didn't have Sabrina at school or revolve around teaching a moral lesson to someone who's supposed to be almost morally perfect for the millionth time. It didn't have her aunts glaring at her. It was all worth it, because not only did I get to review it, but I got to see another story where she's written like she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be a goody two-shoes. So this was a good story to have a frame of reference for anyone who might have forgotten how she's supposed to be. The reason I took so long to review this was obviously because I didn't know about this story. I only found out about the story because I was trying to find out the cheapest way to buy every Archie Andrews story I read. And so I was going through Archie's Double Digest 19 and found a story that I've never read before. Who knows how many other stories I've missed. Archie Andrews Where Are You Digest 49. Hot Cuisine. Hilda says she loves doing international cooking as Zelda's making a brew from Japan. So that's interesting, because I never did that before. Hilda says it's missing something, and she puts in Japanese beetles. I don't know how it was funny that it had the word Japanese in its name.